Welcome to the Craft and Biz of Acting, the place to go to learn what they didn't teach you in acting school. When you're looking for the next step in your acting career, we've got you covered. With your host, monologue expert, and founder of monologuestogo.com, Joyce Story.
Hello, fellow thespians. You are listening to the Craft and Biz of Acting. I'm your host, Joyce Story, and we're here to explore the nuts and bolts of auditioning and performing. Today's guest is my friend and neighbor, Klea Blackhurst. Klea is known for her award-winning tribute to Ethel Merman, Everything the Traffic Will Allow. Klea recently starred off-Broadway opposite Hayley Mills in Party Face. She played the title role in the world premiere production of Hazel at Drury Lane in Chicago, a classic second banana in The Nutty Professor, premiering in Nashville, directed by Jerry Lewis, with a score by Marvin Hamlisch and Rupert Holmes, and as Dolly in Goodspeed Opera's 50th anniversary production of Hello, Dolly. Klea is a charter member of the Jerry Herman Legacy Concerts for ASCAP Foundation and a distinguished alumna of the University of Utah. You can learn more about Klea at KleaBlackhurst.com. Her link is in our show notes. And welcome to the show, Klea.
Thank you very much.
So great to have you here, and it's so great to have Sprout here. Hello,
Sprout is in my lap. She's a very good girl. We're hoping she'll be very quiet.
She's a lovely little dog, and if she's not very quiet, then she'll have her little moment. We'll have to give her residuals for being on the podcast.
Oh, you be quiet.
Actually, we met through our dogs.
Yes, we did.
I was walking my dog, Hazel.
Yes.
And Hazel was a lovely St. Bernard who has since gone to St. Bernard homeland in the sky.
She was really a stunning dog. I mean, first of all, she was huge.
She was
huge. Which was that's her calling card. But she looked as friendly as could be. So she was not scary. She was just huge, like a giant personality.
And she loved Sprout because she loved little dogs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got along just fine.
And when I met you, it was the dead of winter, and you were wearing a hat. So the second time I saw you, I wasn't 100% sure if you were you, because suddenly you were a redhead and not a hathead. But I remember you saying, Hazel, I'm Hazel too. And I was like, your name's Hazel? Well, no, not really. I'm on my way to play Hazel.
I think I was literally carrying the boxes to the UPS store across the way on my way to Drury Lane in Chicago, where we gave Hazel its world premiere.
Yes.
And that's still an ongoing project that we hope will get, keep running the race. And I'm the title character, so who doesn't love Hazel? And I took that as a very good sign that I walk out my door and there's a giant St. Bernard named Hazel.
Hazel. Yes.
That's awesome.
So it's a sign,
It was
Tommy.
a sign.
It's
we were meant to be good neighbors.
My husband did a show called Jersey Boys, and there's a little clip in it that goes, "It's a sign, Tommy. It's a sign." So that's always our running gag.
Yeah, it fits in a lot of places. That was definitely a sign.
It was.
Yeah.
So that was a wonderful experience for you. I remember you said it was.
Yeah,
great.
it was. It really is everything they say. When people talk about putting a new musical together, it's so many moving parts, and it's so. And I was just starring in it, which was a huge opportunity for me and a huge honor and, just a really exciting part of my life. And if you move one piece over here, it seems to fix something, but then it moves 8 pieces down the line that you forgot to notice that would have happened. So that was really, I think that show needs another 1 or 2 big go-rounds, and it could really...
legs.
I really think so. And it's a perfect part for me. So luckily, because Hazel in this version, in this show, Hazel's leading man could be a star. I mean, literally, it could be from Martin Short to John Larroquette so that's where they would put a star, and nobody was gunning to replace me right out of the gate, which was great news.
Great news.
Yeah, it was, because it's very rare that you can say there's a part that other people could obviously do, but I know nobody could do it better.
Right.
I wouldn't say that about every show in the world, but this particular part was the first time I read one of these monologues, I was like, this is me. I know how to say this. And eventually everybody kind of felt the same way. So, fingers crossed that goes somewhere.
Yeah, but also, that's a good point, because Hello, Dolly is one of the shows on your resume, and it's just been on Broadway, and now it's doing a tour, but you're up against stars.
Well, it's funny because you can get upset about things. I can get upset about things. But when somebody says, well, who got it? Bette Midler, you're like, got it, I get it. You realize that, well, the universe isn't really based on, merit and how hard you've worked and so on and so forth. You're like, well, if they can get Bette Midler to do it, who wouldn't get Bette Midler to do it?
Exactly.
That seems to be more and more the trend. If you can get a big person to do it.
Of course you will, because that's what sells tickets.
Right.
But what I was getting at is that if this show does have legs or does fly, it could become a vehicle show for you to get to the next level in your career, which is already a very good career. But sometimes you don't want the lead role because that's not the one you're going to end up getting cast. That's the one where they bring in the stars.
That's right.
But if they could get a male who could be a big star and you're made for this role, that could become a vehicle for you.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. It was very clear that nobody, as this was going along, nobody was gunning for me. They were seeing other opportunities where they could fill that and then go ahead and let that part make a star instead of putting a star in that part.
Right.
Which I'm always looking for that person who's willing to do that. But the whole thing was kind of a miracle anyway that I was found for the part because I had been sharing a dressing room with Lucy Arnaz.
Really?
Yes, that Lucy Arnaz.
That Lucy Arnaz.
Yeah, because of the Nutty Professor, another thing that you mentioned in my bio.
Right.
And that was the last musical Marvin Hamlisch did. And he died while we were performing it in Nashville. Now, that was a huge shock to everybody. And because of a song that I sing in the second act of that show, it became very, very meaningful, this song, because of the message of it, that what you have to do while you have the time. And it was all very... And because of that song, where it sat in Marvin's career and my singing it, I was invited on all these concerts that year that Marvin died. Some really big deal concerts, including the one with Barbra Streisand and everybody at Juilliard. Suddenly it's like, but that got me there. So one of them was in Pittsburgh, and Lucy Arnaz was on that because of her association with Marvin starring in They're Playing Our Song.
Right.
And we shared a dressing room for 3 days. And, she's very approachable, lovely person. Every once in a while, you're like, oh my gosh, I am actually talking to Lucille Ball's baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that isn't what you're feeling all the time. I wasn't afraid of her or nervous around her or anything. So after this time we spent together, she went to, friends of her are the writers of Hazel. And she said, I found your Hazel. And they were like, who? And she said, Klea Blackhurst. I said, is that the one who does the Ethel Merman thing? She said, I think so. But they said, well, we need somebody who's soft with a heart. And, I can't be a brassy person. She said, I don't know what you know about Klea Blackhurst, but she's your Hazel.
Wow.
And shortly after that, they saw me on another concert with Lucy in New York City. And they ran up to me after and asked me to do a demo for them, which then led to our own relationship down the line.
What an endorsement.
Yeah. So that was like really exciting that, somebody seeing that and liking that. So I give Lucy Arnaz all the credit, actually, for the discovery.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, you've worked with some iconic people. I hesitated before I actually said Jerry Lewis's name because that Jerry Lewis?
Yeah, that Jerry Lewis. It was, he was 80-something when we were in Nashville, and I'd been involved with it for 7 years at that point. He had been turning with Michael Andrew, the guy who was starring in it and one of the producers of it. And I know from people who sat at the table, I was with it way before Marvin was on board or Rupert was on board. I got a call one day and this woman said, yes, this is Penny calling from Jerry Lewis Productions. Mr. Lewis is wondering if there's a time you'd be available to meet with him in Las Vegas. Will you be in Las Vegas anytime soon? Well, I was in Los Angeles at the time. I rented a car and drove right over. I mean, I said, Jerry Lewis who? Jerry Lewis? Yeah, Jerry Lewis. So I went there, and after setting me up with a Diet Coke and sitting me down, he asked me if I knew who Kathleen Freeman was. And I do know who Kathleen Freeman was. She had just passed away, but she was a great character actress, if you don't know, played maids and teachers and in everything you've ever seen. And she was part of Jerry Lewis's core of actors that he worked with in the 60s. And she played this character, Miss Lemon, in the original 1963 Nutty Professor. And somebody had given Jerry my CD, the first CD I did, which had singing on it and speaking on it. And he just thought I was a 21st century Kathleen Freeman. And he called me to his office and offered me this part. And I was like, okay. But he was like, I just want to know when I call you in 6 months to do it, will you be interested? And I'm like, yeah, count me out. I mean, there was nothing to say no to. Do you know what I mean? It was like, sure, yeah, anything you want. But then as the piece became more developed, somebody around the table would say, we ought to get somebody in here to do this part, like a Debbie Monk or a Mary Testa. And somebody told me who was there that Jerry said, no, I want to use Klea. You'll love her. It's fine. And those are the moments I think that most people get booted out of their own projects.
Right.
Right? They're not deeply felt. Nobody was suggesting Mary Testa or Deborah Monk because they didn't like me. They didn't know me, so there was no, they're just looking for a name. And then there's Jerry to say, no, I already got it. It's Klea. Next,
I
moving
love
on.
it that every time you mention Jerry, you sound like Jerry.
Well, he was really a character. I mean, I get what was difficult about him over the years. I'm not totally rose-colored glasses about him, but he was very good to me and loyal to me and thought I was funny. There's a great quote that he said women weren't funny or whatever. I don't know the context of that or why he said that or why he was being a jerk that day or whatever. But he taught me how to stop a show, literally by the numbers.
Really?
Yeah, because at the end of this one song, it got this huge ovation. And he said to me one day, you're killing it. And it was a huge ovation. It was fine. Anybody would be fine with it. He said, you've got to let it go longer. And he said, you have to count to 3 at this speed, and he counted. And then he said, just when you want your muscles to move, count to 3 again, and then move for the first time. And, I had to do it because he was my director and he was there. So I did it. Against my every instinct in me was like dying, holding to 3 and then holding to 3 again. But dang it, if it didn't stop that show. Wow. Cold, like hard, like big deal stopping the show. And that was absolutely, literally learning from this guy who knew comedy, who wanted to share it by the numbers. Right. So it's a really big part of my life. I'm sad I'm not sure what kind of, that show has a lot of potential, and I do hope that people get to hear it because they will love what Marvin Hamlisch was up to, and his work really was done. And Rupert Holmes was doing the book and the lyrics, and he's probably one of the greatest craftsmen in the world. So hopefully, if it gets another go-round, he can be the glue that then just pieces anything together. But I hope people get to hear it someday. It's great.
You've got a lot of really good quality projects in the hopper.
Yeah, they're in the hopper. They just keep hopping around. I keep saying, let one of them grow legs and walk over the finish line.
Yeah.
I would be very, very happy with that.
But it's a game of numbers.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
The more times you throw pasta on the wall.
Yeah. And it's very hard not to take it personally as is most of show business, I think is very hard not to take personally because you're the thing. You're the product. And so the older I've gotten, the further away I've gotten from overly worrying about these things because there are so many things that have nothing to do with anything you could affect or have an influence on, but you just have to keep going forward, hoping that when you're in the right place, you just keep meeting the person who is the next person to send you the next and just say yes and keep working. That's really my philosophy. Just say yes. First rule of improv. Just stay out there.
Great philosophy.
Yeah.
On that note, we're going to take a break and we're going to hear from our sponsor. But I have so many more questions that have come out of the things you've said. So I'm trying to formulate in my mind where we're going to start up again. And we'll be back. We are talking to Klea Blackhurst.
Looking for the perfect monologue that will nail your next audition? Need something right away? Need a fresh perspective? Monologues2go.com is your one-stop shop for audition material. We understand actors' needs because we've been in your shoes. We know the importance of finding the perfect piece that fits like it was made for you. Pick your favorite monologues and download them instantly. It's that easy. Think of us like a takeout menu, only a whole lot more fun. We're fresh, fast, hot, and delivered to you in seconds. Monologues2go.com. Original monologues that work.
Hello again. We're back with Klea Blackhurst, and we are talking about her journey through the ups and downs and ins and outs of the circuitous route that is an acting career.
Yes, that's circuitous. That's a very encouraging word. I like it.
It is.
There's nothing wrong with circuitous.
No, it's a long and windy road, and I think the key is long.
Yes. It is a game of longevity. I was saying that to myself when I was 22 years old, when I came to New York. I said, it's just a game of numbers. It's just you gotta, and I said, if I'm not happy after 5 years, I can go back to Salt Lake City and live my life there. And 5 years came and went, and 10 years came and went, and on and on and on. And I never stopped doing it. And, I'm getting to a point now where I've done so many projects or readings or things or, regional shows and stuff. I'll go to an audition and I'll see young people. I'll see a young person. They're like, hi, they come in, they give me a hug. And I just call it like it is. I say, remind me of our show. What did we do together? I just know it's like, I have no idea. But it's just been so many years of loving what I do and getting so many opportunities, So, yeah, it's a game of sticking with it.
Absolutely. But, I hear your passion and enthusiasm and excitement in everything that we're talking about. And I can tell that you've never lost that.
Yeah, I just really love it. I'm so grateful for a voice. Like, I love being able to sing. I do act. The show I did with Hayley Mills last year was a play. It wasn't a musical.
Is Hayley Mills from
Parent Trap? Yeah.
Parent Trap. I'm looking at a poster of her. Parent Trap. I lost the name of it, but
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, she's lovely.
I loved her when I was a kid.
Oh, everybody loves her. And you
gosh.
know what? She is so lovable. She's exactly who you would hope that she would be. She's just the loveliest person I've ever met. And it was an honor to do a play, because once you're doing musicals, people think of you as a musical performer and they forget that it's like, oh no, we're actors within that too, so that was great. But I love singing. I love being able to do that. It's always made me happy. It still makes me happy. There's never a time when I sing that it isn't something I really, really appreciate. So enthusiasm or passion, those are exactly the right words. Because I love it. I love it.
Well, it's catching. Your enthusiasm is catching.
Good,
it just makes
good.
me excited about the business all
Good,
over
yeah.
again. And it makes me feel privileged that I'm doing a podcast like this where I get to just interview my friends and
I
colleagues.
think it's terrific. I mean, and you have such an interesting angle on the business, with the people that like who you'd arrive at immediately in your Rolodex. That's a pretty awesome cross section of the business anyway,
Right.
So I think it's great that you're doing it. I'm so glad I met your dog Hazel and got myself a spot on your podcast. I was very lucky.
It's all because of Hazel. And Sprout is being a very good little Sprout, I have to say.
Yeah, she's trying. She's giving it a go.
Being very well behaved.
Yes, very well behaved.
So you travel all over you've had some great roles, but you've gone all over the country and perhaps other places of the world. And you just keep building your resume and you're always working. Every time I meet you, you're either coming or going. You've got a suitcase in your hand.
Yeah.
While we're running down to our compost at the end of on Wednesdays, we compost in this neighborhood.
That's right.
How do you feel about leaving town? I mean, obviously you feel good about leaving town, but I want to talk to actors, or I want you to talk to actors about building your resume out of town so that you can come back into town, or just building your resume because work begets work. Is that how you feel about it? Am I
Absolutely.
putting words into your mouth?
No, I think that's exactly right. And I think New York City, I always sort of looked at it as the middle of the wheel, where it's like you have to be there to get the job at the end of the spoke. Which might be Florida or, Chicago or Utah or California, whatever, but they come here to find people.
Right.
Right. So having a presence here is like a real choice that actually is putting out into the universe that you're willing to go other places.
Right.
And because when you're somewhere else, that I think is a different path. And I have wonderful friends in Salt Lake City who have chosen a path where you stay where you are and then you become an expert and a really, really super qualified, fabulous artist there.
Right.
And sometimes I think that path leads to a lot of work sometimes that I think I don't get to do. Like, I don't necessarily get to do great big parts. I am not a big fish in a smaller pond, It's like you're in the biggest pond imaginable.
Right.
And you just keep trying to. And the auditions you go for, many of the auditions, this is where people come just to make sure there's not somebody here to do the role. So you have to be here. Right. I mean, that's what I always thought. I always felt when I was growing up, if you thought you were pretty and like a movie kind of person, you would go to Los Angeles. And if you were like brassy and wanted to be in the stage and be an actor, you came to New York. That's just what my mind, from reading books when I was a kid on through college, that's just what I perceived it was. And so it was always very clear to me that I was going to go to New York.
You were destined to come here.
I knew it. I just always knew it.
Which brings me to another point. You are a character actress, Are you growing into more roles as you get older?
Totally. Totally. In fact, I consider myself lucky in a lot of ways because the people who are ingenues, they have to then go through a process where they figure out what to do as they get older, right? And
Right.
I feel like it's like I just have been doing the process, hoping finally to get some of the work I really want to get. I've already put in that part that other people, but I mean, we're talking many, many years of waiting and honing. And I get mad that I wasn't successful early on sometimes, but I'm like, you know what? I'm better now than I was when I was 25. It's not like I was that good at 25 and people were missing it. I actually am better now. And you forget as a character actor, you know, when you grow up, you're like, oh, I got to play Emily Brent in 10 Little Indians when I was 19. It's like, well, they don't need you to play a 65-year-old woman because there actually are 65-year-old women in the world who will do this professionally.
Right.
You know, so that's been, I was always a character woman. I was always that person. And now finally, the outside is matching up with that inside, which is good.
I always loved the character roles, and I always wanted to be that person. I remember being devastated in Guys and Dolls when I got cast as Sarah. I got cast as Sarah, but I wanted to be Adelaide so badly, and I had rehearsed and practiced. I think I even came into the audition with Adelaide's big song, and then they wanted me to be Sarah.
Listen, I'm so glad you said that because that is exactly the show that I use to make this very point. There are Miss Sarahs in the world, and there are Adelaides in the world. Now, that's just how it is from the people on the outside looking in, casting their show. They say, you go in, and they say, oh, Joyce is a perfect Miss Sarah. And you're like, no, but I'm really a Miss Adelaide, right? You're saying what it feels like from the inside, but from the outside, that did not match what they saw in you, right?
Right, good point.
And so it's like, you kind of have to, there are Miss Sarahs and there are Miss Adelaides, and those can be different on the inside and the outside. For the Miss Sarah, if I wanted to be a Miss Sarah, it's like, we're sorry, you're just going to have to be Adelaide. I'm sorry, you know what I mean? So, I think there are two different kinds of, and the classic musicals, of course, always have that. The leading couple, and then that second couple, that second storyline.
And I love that second storyline.
I
because
know.
To me, that's where the humor is, and that's where the rich color of it actually has more depth in it.
Yeah, the Ado Annies.
Yes. Yes. But that also brings up a good point. You have to know who you are, don't you? You have to really be clear about what it is you're selling.
Yes, and I think you have to be willing to allow that to morph, that you may not always be right. What you have to know is who you are. And that it may not be that people see that. I remember feeling like when I was very young, I wanted to be Nellie Forbush. I didn't understand why I wasn't getting to do that. And that's just not who I was perceived as. And that was a hard time for me to go through. And maybe that was just, I don't know. I mean, I could have played Nellie Forbush, honestly. Nobody ever let me do it. But I really saw myself as that. And as time went by, I kind of had to let go of that. I'm like, you know what? Nobody else sees that. So you may have to just, whatever it is about Nellie Forbush that you want, you can take that as part of your story of you. That's a role you would love to play, but let go of like actually playing it. And maybe that's part of my attraction to, singing and doing nightclub work and my own show that I wrote about Ethel Merman and so on.
I want to get back to that.
Yeah, well, then you can apply yourself to songs. I don't have to play Nellie Forbush to sing Cockeyed Optimist. That's a whole other conversation. And I think in getting to know who I am, as I was getting older in this business, I was like tired of waiting for permission. I do not have to wait for someone to cast me as Nellie Forbush to know who I am and know that I could sing that or sing any number of songs without having a job in a show.
Right.
And so lack of job in shows was always a time for me to figure out how to be myself and perform in front of people. I do a lot of hosting now, events or, MC and things like that. Well, that comes out of knowing how to just be myself when I stand up in front of people. That does not make me nervous. And sometimes a lot of people who, have had a lot of Broadway shows and everything, they don't feel comfortable doing that because they've been able to come of age at a time when they had a character name and a director telling them what to do and somebody to tell them what the clothes are for that character and all those choices. It's a completely different discipline.
Right.
But I feel like I've been And if I looked at it as a gift, it would be to like know who I am and just keep learning more about that.
And clearly you do know who you are. And you've had endorsements from big people. I mean, Jerry Lewis and Lucy Arnaz. But that
wonderful.
says that you bring it into the room or they wouldn't notice.
Yeah, yeah. Well, those two that you're talking about are interesting because those miraculously came about because of me not being in the room as like bringing it in terms of an audition or something. More somebody realizing just by being with you, this is, you know what, it'd be great. She'd be great at this.
Yes.
You know, it wasn't me auditioning or trying to be the essence of myself as an audition. I think I'm probably a pretty poor auditioner, actually. If the shape of my career based on what I've gotten from auditions is any indication, I'm not really good at that, I would imagine.
I am so glad you said that.
Yeah, I
Because
don't
I don't think I audition well either. And in my case, it's hurt my career. But in your case, you are a working actor and you still get work in spite of the fact that maybe your long suit is not the audition itself.
Yeah, I think that's why showing up and always bringing your full attention to anything. Now, I've done some terrible shows.
We all have.
Yeah, but the thing is not to bail on the show. In the midst of it, you're like, you know what? I chose to be here. I have to do this. Because you really never know who's sitting there thinking, oh my God, bless her heart, stuck in this stinker. But she's fantastic.
Right.
You know, the show isn't so good, but I mean, she was hysterical. You know, we've all thought that about people.
Yes.
See somebody kind of rise above the material and, you know, like, oh, they're destined for something or, you know.
I've seen people who are always good. No matter what the show is, no matter how bad the script is, or no matter how bad everybody around them are,
Yeah.
they do their work, they bring it in, and they act like it is the quintessential performance of their life.
Yep. Yep.
Every show.
And that's just a choice, you know. And you can tell the opposite of that. You can tell when people they know they're saddled with a dud. And they have sort of that, like, you and I both know that this is terrible attitude about them. Like they don't want to be fully in it. They want to sort of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know, I'm way above this.
Right.
I don't ever enjoy that. I think that's a terrible way to like do it. You said yes, you know, because that's my philosophy. I say yes. Sometimes that leads you to some pretty like, well, okay, I don't know what I was thinking here, but I said yes.
You know who gave that advice? I had a former student who ran into Jessica Tandy years ago when she was still with us. And he ran up to her when he was just in acting school. He had studied with me at a fine arts school, and then he moved on and he was studying, I think he was studying at the National Theatre School in Canada. And he ran into her in Toronto. He ran up and he said, Miss Tandy, I'm a new actor, and what advice can you give me? And she said, always say yes.
Amazing.
No matter what the work is, always say yes.
Yeah.
And I never forgot that because you don't know who's in that audience. Work begets work.
Work begets work, and you have to be out there doing it. I remember years ago, I was so depressed. I was suffering with some depression at a certain time in my life. And I was like, I was so self-pitying and like furious all the time that I didn't get I wasn't being acknowledged for all this stuff. And my friend Denise said to me, you know, I mean, you can go on like this forever. You can sit here and have a temper tantrum in your apartment, but nobody knows you're missing. Nobody knows you're not out there. You know what I mean? It's like nobody misses you because they don't know you. So get off your couch and go outside.
Good for her.
You know, and I did. And that's been a good one for me to realize, like, I think that was a big part of the genesis of writing something for myself with my Merman show. It's like I could not, before I quit, I thought you've got to like at least write something for yourself. It started out wanting to be a nightclub act, and it's kind of grown into a little bit more than that, or there are several versions of it, whatever. It is done in theaters and so on.
How long have you been doing it?
Well, it opened in New York in 2001, so since then. And it started out a 90-minute piece at Danny's Seafood Palace. And it grew, you know, there's a 2-act version that I've done in theaters. There's orchestrations. I can sing it with orchestras. You know, there's all kinds of different, you can do it with a trio. You can do it with just the piano. There's a 45-minute I do with a speakers bureau where I go out as an Ethel Merman expert. And, you know, we'll sort of basically do a cutting from my show, but under the guise of being a lecture on Ethel Merman. So that's been really good to me, just saying I've got to do my own thing. I can't wait for permission because guess what? Nobody's giving it to me.
Right.
These auditions aren't going my way. I don't know why, but it can't be self-pitying. I mean, it's like, I'm me. There's a lot of people that come in. There could be a ton of things that have nothing to do with me that are, inspiring their choices. And I'm not the person. So what are you going to do in the meantime? And so I just started kind of creating my own thing. And then that show, Everything the Traffic Will Allow, was very well received. And one of the quotes about it that I liked was that I'm a musical theater historian who performs what I find as opposed to writing a book about it. And so I have other shows, about other things, but the Merman one is the one that seems to, and that was the album that Jerry Lewis listened to in his car 4 times, driving from San Diego to Las Vegas.
Oh my God.
That's what he told me, and so I thought, okay, well that, talk about a residual ripple effect that goes out. Right. You make that album in a studio and then one day it gets to Jerry Lewis's ears,
Wow.
So that's what that show's done for me, is kind of given me another part of a career that makes me, I have a lot of pride in it.
Yes, you should have.
Yeah,
it's something that you created from nothing.
Yes, I just made it up out of nothing. And just to be clear, because it's always the first thing I want people to know, I don't imitate Ethel Merman. I mean, not even a very good impersonator of her. I just am a natural belter. And if you're a natural belter, the road is going to lead to Ethel Merman historically, because that's kind of like the first big person who does it. And talk about shows that are lacking second bananas. I mean, Ethel Merman shows, the second bananas are usually like a trio of sailors or something. You know what I mean? They're not like another, she pretty much handles all the story you can handle, which I always think is kind of really fun about her. She's a character for sure.
She is definitely a character. Well, Klea, you are a character, and just a wonderful character, and I am just so happy for you, for all of your successes. I can't wait till you get that first Broadway show. I am going to buy my ticket and sit in the front row center and clap the loudest.
I will be so happy to see you down there. It'll be terrific. Someday. That's what I came here to do, and I have every intention of doing it. So it'll be interesting to see how it comes about.
And honestly, I have no doubt that you will. And I really mean that from my heart.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, we have to sign off for now, but
okay.
Maybe you'll come back and visit us another time.
Oh, anytime. You know where to find me.
I do, just down the street.
Down the street. I love it. Congratulations on your podcast. I think it's terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You have been listening to The Craft and Biz of Acting. I'm Joyce Story. Until next time, break a leg.
Thanks for tuning in to The Craft and Biz of Acting. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode, and while you're at it, please leave us a rating and a review and share our show with your friends. We're building a supportive and educational community, and we want you to be a part of it. Tune in every week for more helpful insights and tools for honing your craft and booking your next gig. Until next time, break a leg.